What's up, guys? It's Q&A response time. It's Monday, September 18th, 2017. Thread was up this morning, so relatively fresh on the questions. I'm going to set the, let's see here, see how that works. All right. Okie dokie. All right, let's see what we have. As a female, what is the best course of action for restoring hormone balance smoothly post-cycle? Mild female-centric Anavar or low-dose primo cycles. I've seen females get ridiculous binge urges, full-body edema, dangerously high blood glucose, etc. While trying to restore balance, there has to be a better way. Okay, so part of it's going to depend on how much they're throwing their hormones out of whack. In this case, you said mild, so it's going to be mild. Obviously, side effects and recovery would be a little bit different, in something more extreme. But in any case, there's obviously a hormone imbalance. I know a lot of people don't advocate any kind of PCT, which, as far as like restoring hormones with things like Clomid or Nolvadex, typically not going to see a lot of people suggest that. I've seen some things as far as like more advanced users using Clomid to restore estrogen balance, but I mean, I'm just going to sticking to the question here. A couple main things you're going to look at. It's probably going to affect the cycle. Obviously, it's going to affect mood, and mood in terms of like dopamine, serotonin, or they may be depressed. They might have crazy urges because certain hormones are thrown off. Serotonin could be one of them, certainly. So a couple things: we want to stabilize the mood, and want to, obviously, the hormones are going to return to normal on their own, but we want to let them return as smoothly as possible. So for estrogen, DEM over the counter is good. Cool thing about that is it's in a low dose DEM. I mean, for a woman, you could maybe start them at 200 milligrams ish, and then drop it to 100 after a couple weeks and cruise on that. And that's still pretty low dose. I mean, you could definitely use more, but that's pretty low dose. That will allow the entire estrogen balance, not just estradiol, everything to return to normal, in normal ratios, because you have estrone also. You have multiple estrogens there, and you want them to return to normal. So DEM. For mood, I've just seen 5-HTP be pretty successful in that case. For serotonin, maybe 100 milligrams twice a day. If they're really having problems at night with like binging and stuff, maybe 200 milligrams at night, so 100 in the morning, 100 midday, and 200 at night. That'd be high end, a little bit high end on the dose. But short term, wean off of that. If mood is an issue, just like a really down mood, something to enhance dopamine, so L-tyrosine or L-dopa would be fine. Either of those really. About 500 milligrams of L-dopa is pretty typical twice a day, morning and afternoon. Tyrosine is going to be about 1,000 to 1,500 milligrams. You use the acetyl L-tyrosine, it can be about half that maybe. So those are going to be some of the main things. If water is really an issue, if you restore the estrogen properly, and then you shouldn't have as much problems. But there's also progesterone to consider, and in some cases with the cycle being ceased, the progesterone is actually low. So to return that, some people will use like a progesterone cream, which is a really low dose progesterone compared to what you would get in like an oral prescription from a doctor. That's a tricky one. It's not. I don't want to tell anyone, hey, take this hormone, because you're just putting more hormones in, but it's still in, like a 20 milligram dose. The creams might say 20 to 30, 40 milligrams or something along those lines. In a really low dose like that, it's just going to help restore that, and then you could stop that also and let the progesterone return. So that's a potential idea there if the cycles are an issue. So three main things: progesterone, estrogen, mood, mainly. And I think those are the basics. And then blood work, obviously, get that done. check all those things. If you had to pick 5 individual supplement ingredients, what would they be and why? Oh, man. Okay. I think I've answered this before maybe, but I'm not sure. So this would be kind of individual just for me. They're probably going to be health supplements, really. Just thinking of what I would need specifically, and this might be different for somebody else, but I would probably say... let's see, what was the first one? First one, I'd probably say krill oil or a good fish oil. Just so many, I mean, there's so many benefits. And cardiovascular-wise, I mean, that's always kind of a big deal to me. So I would probably say that would be one. 2, for me, at least currently, pancreatic enzymes or good digestive enzyme like that. I mean, that's actually more than one ingredient, but this normally comes in a blend. So, and that's just for what they do for inflammation systemically. I mean, there are systemic enzymes also, but that's slightly different. But what they do for inflammation, how they help my digestive tract, I do enjoy those. Oh man. I would probably say also on the heart health side of things, citrus bergamot. That's one of the few things I've actually seen move my HDL numbers. So, because genetically I just don't have very good HDL, so that actually moves my HDL numbers up. Not much else affects them very much, so I would probably say that. I use the Jarrow brand. There's a few brands out there. Shit, I'm trying to think what else. You know, I literally have the most ridiculous drawer of health supplements. Actually, I'll put it in the video just for shits and giggles. So you guys can kind of see what we got going on here. Here. Boom. That's like half the drawer. I mean, there's a little bit more than that. The drawer goes way back. And then we have, then up here, we have just more stuff there. And we also have over here more. Yeah. And I have another bottom drawer down there that has like surplus, some that just doubles of a couple things. But going back to it, I would probably say ubiquinol, it's a form of CoQ10. I would probably add that in there as one of the heart health supplements. So that's 1, 2, is that 3? 3 or 4. To get my drawer. Curcumin. Say probably a good curcumin, just because of, again, inflammation benefit, but also has benefits for insulin sensitivity. I mean, there's so many. I mean, there's antioxidant properties. There's so many things that go along with curcumin that I wouldn't want to leave that out. But you got to make sure, obviously, with curcumin that you're getting a good form of it. So that's going to be important. Say the last one. Oh man. Okay, for me, and this won't apply to a lot of people, but for me, a B complex with methylated B vitamins and intrinsic factors. So I'm anemic. I have pernicious anemia, so I don't process B vitamins very well. So intrinsic factors, what's going to help with the B vitamin, B12, specifically the basically making it active and usable. So I use this Douglas right now, Douglas B complex. See, with intrinsic factor, you can kind of see that at the bottom. So I would probably add that on there, because otherwise I feel like shit. Anemia sucks. So there you go. And that might be different for someone else, and you got the peek of my supplement drawer. Although, like I said, there's a whole nother drawer full in the bottom. Next one. Your thoughts on incorporating hip thrusts into an individual's leg routine. I don't see anything wrong with it. I think that hip thrust is kind of a general, that's kind of a general term, so I'm not sure if you mean like glute bridges or what, how exactly you're setting that up, but I mean, you could use them for an activation exercise, and you could also use them as a primary hypertrophy exercise, although I see a lot of people kind of abuse the glute bridges and hip thrusts, and you get really carried away with it, and they're not getting good contractions on their glutes, because you have to get a certain amount of extension to get at least a decent contraction. But assuming you're doing that, you could definitely incorporate into the program. I see no problem with that. Personally, I don't have a lot of people use them. I have a few people do some glute work directly. I love RDLs for glutes if you're doing them correctly. Low bar squatting if needed. And then, I mean, there's a few other things, but for activation work, I'll often put in like glute marches and things like that. So, favorite type of cardio and typical length during a cutting phase? Oh my. I can't even answer this question, to be honest. I wish I could give you an answer, but the length will vary. For me, it varies all the time. It's varied in different preps and different mini cuts and different phases. It's type. It's all varied. How beat up is my body? Can I handle doing HIIT? HIIT might give me a little bit more, but can my nervous system even handle doing it? I couldn't even begin to answer this question, man. Sorry. That's going to depend on a lot of different factors. But I would say in general, you're probably going to get a little more bang from your buck with HIIT, and the sessions take less time. So if you can generate the intensity. So next one, getting insane pump in lower back, specifically when doing squats, deadlift, rows. Blood pressure is normal, blood glucose normal. Having the pumps, I cannot do more than 2 sets before I have to do some kind of seated exercise, and I'm in surplus and getting stronger. In the last month, body weight's up 20 pounds. And is anything I can prevent? I heard about taurine, for example. Taurine would probably help some, about 5 to 6 grams a day. But if you're up 20 pounds in a month, that's probably part of it, honestly. I mean, there was a huge shift in fluids there and glycogen, at least to an extent. I mean, maybe fat too. I mean, I don't really know the situation, but if you gain 20 pounds in a month, like there's people that gain 20 pounds in a day after a show or 2 days. I mean, obviously it subsides, but in either case, 20 pounds in a month, especially if you're holding on to that 20 pounds and it's not just a fluctuation, that's probably that's your reason right there. So cut some of the fluff off or water retention or whatever's going on to cause that 20-pound weight gain, because it certainly wasn't muscle tissue. Maybe cut some carbs back, add some fats in, try to let the body water come off a little bit. Taurine, like I said, will also help. Exercise for detailing legs, quad sweeps, hamstring separation, training volumes and frequencies. Okay. I mean, nothing in particular that's really going to detail it. I mean, you can hit the individual heads of everything, like when you're squatting, or use something basically like leg extensions. You turn your toes out, you're going to hit the VMO a little bit more. You turn your toes in. That you said quad sweep. Well, there you go. There's quad sweep. Medial head, turn your toes straight, lean forward. Hamstrings. I mean, you can rotate your heels in and out. Same with squats. I mean, you can move stance and hit adductors and hips and glutes and quads, and there's all kinds of different ways to do those things, of which you can target the muscles for development. But as far as like details, I mean, that's just going to be a matter of one, having enough muscle there, so when you shave it down, you have a good dense muscle that's going to show separation deep enough. And secondly, I mean, there's a genetic component there to some extent, for separation, I would say. And then make sure there's no body fat on there. If you get it lean enough, it's going to show detail. So, okay. possibility of creating hyperplasia with GH and Slin, myth or reality? And this question's been asked in my Q&As like 10 times now, I think. So I'm not gonna go into it much. But yeah, in theory, possibly. Although most of what I've seen in terms of hyperplasia has been on younger people that are still growing more. I don't know how much that's actually going to happen in adults, but in theory, it could potentially happen with the synergy with GH and insulin and what's happening with IGF. So maybe. That's what I could say. As far as prepping for a show and having to do an X amount of calories burned, especially for less faster cardio, depending on how high the number goes, can you split the cardio into so many sessions a day, or is that more counterproductive, you think? Yeah, split it up for sure. I normally say, I mean, I like to split mine personally just because if I can split up the boringness of it, it's better. And the way I see it is, hey, maybe I'll get, even though the epoch effect on steady state is pretty low, hey, maybe I'll get just a little bit. So if I split it up, I can get a metabolic benefit twice a day instead of once. And I just, if I'm doing an hour, then I'm doing 30 and 30 or, whatever it is. I normally say make sessions at least 20 minutes long if you're going to split it, and no more than an hour. Although that's not to say that I've never had anyone do more than an hour in one sitting schedule if we had to do it like that. But so that's how you can split up. So if you're doing 90 minutes, go 45, 45 or something. You can split it up. I mean, there's people that split it into 3 days. I was doing 3 days at certain points. They weren't an hour each. They were, 45, I don't know, 40 minutes, something like that. I don't remember for sure. But yeah, you can split it up. I don't see any problem with that, especially steady state. And that is it, guys. I think that's it. 17 minutes, son of a bitch. Yep. Cool, guys. That is it for today. I hope I got everyone's questions, and we'll do it again next week.